I thought that it would make you happy if I did a little demo of sketching using ink and painting using ink. Some people have asked me about that. Those are the emu sketches that I did at the Natural History Museum yesterday, and I'm going to try to take you through this process so that you can see how these were done. So I have my materials here. I have the thing that I'm going to be starting with, which is this, which is a Pilot lettering pen. It's a size number 10, and this is like a tiny little calligraphy pen. It has a nice sort of chisel-shaped nib, and you could use it for lettering, but I'm going to use it for drawing because I think it's a cool kind of a pen to use for drawing because it makes a lot of really interesting, neat marks. And I am right now just trying to get the shape of the emu in there. Notice how scribbly and sketchy stuff is for me, and I am really just trying to get the shape of the emu. He's got 3 toes, I noticed while I was at the museum sketching. He's got a third one over here, and then another leg which is back here. You only see part of it, so there we go. So a very scribbly sketching style, particularly when I'm sketching something that's moving and alive. You can't expect to be able to, really get that thing down there perfectly because it's moving. So I'm mimicking that sketching style. This is also, though, a sketching style that I really love. I think it's full of life and movement and really shows the alive quality of a lot of things. So it's a wonderful way to work. And so you're kind of feeling your way along, and I'm looking for and remembering those patterns that the emu had. Big stripy patterns. But look at how scribbly, and he had one that went like that. I particularly remember the zigzag. So looking at how scribbly zigzag marks and dashes, these are feather patterns, so they're soft and there's a lot of movement in them, and it's fluffy and feathery around his legs. He had a second big stripe that went down his back. So if you're looking and watching here and you've not sketched before, or you're intimidated to try, or you don't think you can, trust me, if you can scribble, you can sketch. Redefining his eye a bit, I think his beak's a bit longer, and then just a few little texture marks, scaly feet and legs. All right, and then the emus were standing in wood chips, just like you'd have your hamster or your rabbit, that kind of a thing. So let's just give some texture down at the bottom for that, and maybe a few more marks up here for his patterning. All right, so there we have the baby emu. Now that's a pretty quick sketch, a very scribbly sketch. It's not precise, but it's very lively. So here I have brush pens filled with different kinds of ink. So the first one I'm going to use is this one. It's a Sakura. Normally you'd fill this with water so you could dip into your watercolors, but I filled it with Lait de Té, which is a lovely pale kind of golden brown ink, which is perfect for the coloration of the emus. So when you squeeze the handle, it forces the ink out through the brush tip, and it's a real brush, not just sort of a brush-shaped felt tip point. It's an actual paintbrush. And so I am going to very loosely be squeezing the ink down through the handle and very loosely laying in, covering my whole drawing, the bird. And I'm just going to go quickly. I don't want to fuss over this. I just want to lay color in broad strokes, broad wash. And then I'll go out a little bit and hopefully feather some little feathers that come off. They have those downy little chick feathers. Gives them a lot of character. They come down off of the neck here and out here like that. I'm not worried about staying in the lines. I'm not worried about any of that. I'm thinking about the character of the bird, though, while I'm painting it. Now I'm going to switch to this. This is Kuretake. It's mid-brown. It's number 65. This is the same kind of a brush pen, only it comes pre-filled with ink. This is a darker brown, so that's good for his beak. And it's also good for sort of restating very loosely some of those markings, because I covered up my original marker marks from the lettering pen, and I want to restate some of them and give my little emu a little bit more dimension and a little bit more oomph and punch to his beautiful boldly patterned marks. And then I'm also going to be going out feathering again, those little downy chick feathers that come off, and a few down here, just defining, giving a little bit more definition. Then back up here, some more fine marks, down here a little bit. And then his feet, or his legs and feet, get those going. I am not at all concerned about perfection or staying in the lines. See, I've got a smudge over here, but I don't care. I'm going to put a little feathers over it, cover it up. So there's the emu. That was really, really simple. I'm going to go a little bit more here. The darks help define. They help bring three-dimensionality to the sketch. Now, while that's drying, and the ink does dry pretty quickly, I'm going to switch to a Pentel, I think this is. Yep. Water brush with actual water in the handle, and I'm going to use my watercolors. These are May Marie Blue in one of my little travel kits. To add in, I have some yellow ochre here, which I'm going to use, squeeze the handle, get some water in my little pan, and I'm going to very loosely, and I mean loosely, lay in color for the wood chips, or the litter that they're in. And this is why I really believe that anybody can learn to do this. If you're watching this, you are seeing how absolutely scribbly and free and loose. Once you start to learn to see and you develop some eye-hand coordination, and you can start following the outline, the contour lines of something, you'll be amazed at how quickly you can actually start grabbing the shape and the character of something. Now, while that dries a little bit, I'm going to, let me see if this is dry enough. Not really quite dry enough. But the next thing I'll be doing is using this. This is a Uniball Signo white pen. And I'm going to go over my emu to get some of that wonderful little downy, it's kind of wet. So we're going to wait. But that's where I'm going, to get those little lines so that you see his downy hair. And feathery, they're feathers, but they look like hair because they're so soft and so delicate. Well, meanwhile, while the emu dries, I'm going to go back into my watercolors and pick up an umber color, a darker brown color, and I'm going to go back in, and once again, I'm going to add a darker color into my litter or wood chips because it gives, once again, dimension. These wood chips are all, they're not a flat thing, there's a whole pile of them, and they're all different shaped and curling and sitting up against one another and interlocking. And there are places where the light's not getting as much, and that's where it gets dark. All right, so there's that. So we're going to wait just a minute for this to dry. And the next thing I'll do is throw a little bit of a background behind my emu, because the emus are babies and they were under heat lamps. So I'm going to be mixing here. I have a golden color here and a red. It's really hard to do this with one hand. I have the camera in the other hand, but we shall persevere. The red is also very strong, so it's overpowering my gold a bit. All right, so here we go. I am just going to toss in a little bit of red, gold red, loosely. I mean, the key for lively sketches really is to work loosely. I mean, that is just the key. You can't really do it any other way. If you start to feel like you need to get it perfect, you need to get it right, it's got to be a certain way, that's the death knell. So you have to just be able to loosen up and go with it. Go with the flow. I get a little bit more red down in here. This is a nice kind of a variation. I'm squeezing the brush handle, letting more water push through. So there's the emu. He's got a nice little background around him. I'll go for a little bit more gold up here. That shape was too close to the shape of the emu, so I just want to push some of that out into a different direction so it has a little bit of variety. So there's the emu. I don't even have to go all the way around him. In fact, it's more interesting to leave this nice curve against the white so you see that really curved edge, because that's a very distinct feature of the emu. And then just have this background. I could go a little bit more maybe up here. A lot of water pushing the color up there around, softening it, letting it sort of disappear into the upper area there. I like that. Now, the emu also needs a little shadow, so I'm going to grab a little bit of my Payne's Gray. Whoops. There we go. And put a shadow under the emu. I'm not getting enough color. Oh, here we go. So there we go. The Payne's Gray is a cool color, which is great because it's a foil to all of the warm colors that are in here. And his head is here, so you just want something that vaguely resembles the shape of the emu. So that grounds the emu, and it makes him really look like he's anchored to the ground and not just floating in space. So, is my emu dry enough? Oh, maybe. So I'm taking that back to that white pen, a Uniball, and it's not writing because it's too wet yet. Nope, there we go. All right, so I am taking my pen and I'm just going down along the markings of the emu, and you see how nicely that white stands out on the dark. That's that dark brown that was there making his markings. And I'm just making the tiniest little, very short, very quick, again, lively. We want vivaciousness and liveliness in our sketches. Going down along his patterning with this white pen. To create the illusion and the character of those downy chick feathers. I want to do a little bit more around his face and his eye too. And some out here. So really quick, oh, and on his legs too. Really quick sketching. All right, so there's the emu, and that's how I did it at the Natural History Museum, and that's how you can do it too. Just remember, we're not about perfection. We're about capturing the character of something. It's much more important to have an expressive line that captures the feeling and the character of something than to have it perfect. So I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you picked up some tips, and I hope it inspires you to get out there and do some sketching of your own. Be happy.